Well, this has come completely out of nowhere. In fact, I think this literally happened just last night. The announcement came when this leaked, but oh my word, this has been quite surprising. Um, Lord Frost, the Brexit minister, the guy who essentially negotiated the Boris Johnson's absolutely fantastically oven ready, wonderful Brexit deal that all the Brexiteers were raving about this time last year, how amazing it was. And almost a year on, they've all turned against it, now saying that it's an awful deal and that it needs to go. Obviously, a big part of that is, of course, the Northern Ireland Protocol. And we've seen throughout the year Frost continually threaten to trigger Article 16. Now, of course, basically, Article 16 basically means that Britain has basically said it is going to suspend the Northern Ireland Protocol completely. That's essentially what it means. And there are numerous reasons, I think, behind this. One of the big ones that often gets cited is the fact that when you look at Northern Ireland's economy currently at the moment, especially through the past year, it has taken, compared to the rest of the country, far less economic damage compared to the rest of the country. Now, why might that be? Well, the big one, of course, is that it's still in the customs union and single market. And indeed, businesses over in Northern Ireland, where you compare similar businesses over here in the rest of the UK, they have not had supply shortages. They have not had to deal with it. They have not had cancel orders. Their deliveries are on time. Their order books are full. There is a large contingent of economicists, and me and myself included, have basically said they want to try and wreck that as quickly as possible because they do not want people to look at Northern Ireland and look, why is Northern Ireland doing so well compared to the rest of the country? And they don't want people to, click on that it is, oh, it's because they're in the single market and customs union. And of course, this also leads to another thing that we've seen throughout the year of Frost literally on an almost like weekly or bi-weekly basis come out and threaten to trigger Article 16. At this moment, Frost has become the boy who cried wolf. That is who he has essentially become in this scenario. I'll trigger Article 16. And remember, back in when must have he first done it? Back in like May, even April, March time, I think it was when he first started doing this tactic. Yeah, at the time it was very, very worrying and very threatening the first time he did it. But to be honest, the fact that this month alone he has threatened to do it like 3 or 4 times, it's not threatening anymore. It's gotten to the point where whenever it has been covered, I've never covered it as the major news article. I've always covered it as almost a side note in another article that we're covering. You can only threaten to do something so many times before that threat loses its value. And that is essentially what Article 16 has essentially turned into. It has become this almost threatless posturing that Frost has been employing essentially to try and get the European Court of Justice out of essentially resolving disputes in the Northern Ireland Protocol. And of course, last week we saw that this had been carried out, that the government had basically very quietly dropped this as a requirement and they were going to accept the role of the European Court of Justice. Frost has been arguing, not even just this year, but since he came into his position, that the European Court of Justice should not be involved in any way, shape, or form in any area of this agreement. And again, Frost is part of one of the Brexit ultras. He is part of that fanatical group that are all about free trade, free market fundamentalism. And I think that this has been very much designed to put pressure on Johnson. But the more surprising thing is, he handed in his resignation last week. Interestingly enough, there's rumors going around that apparently he stormed out of a meeting. How true that is, I don't know. At the moment, that is just a rumor that was flying around when all this initially happened. But we know that not only just Frost, but the rest of the Brexiteers are desperate to get into this idea of we want to turn the UK into a low tax, low regulation economy. But again, at the referendum, no one voted for that. You poll the public. People want high taxes to pay for good public services. People want good, proper, high standards of regulation in all areas. That is not what the rest of the public wants. This very, very small group who, once again, really pushed for Brexit in the first place is completely out of lockstep with the rest of the country when it comes to regulation. You know, it's completely bananas to see, but they're only like this, I think, because they won Brexit. And I've said before, there are many reasons people voted for Brexit. If you took like all the Brexiteers and put them into a room and then said, okay, we're going to have another Brexit referendum, except this time it's the current deal we have versus a soft Brexit versus staying in the single market and customs union, you would not get a clear consensus of what the Brexiteers want, because Leave at that time sold a massive vision to try and please everyone as much as possible. And we saw this during the Theresa May years of May trying to please almost every single faction she could and failed. Now, of course, what happened with Boris? Boris came along and just said, well, I'm going to appease only the hardcore Brexiteers. Now, of course, as just so happened, it was the hardcore Brexiteers who ousted May and put Boris in the first place. So, of course, they got their way. But we've seen very recently in recent reports of these exact same people saying how worried they are about how left-wing Boris Johnson is, that the Conservative Party is no longer conservative. And I think this is very, very much to put pressure on Boris Johnson to go and follow this libertarian right-wing maneuver that they want. And here's the proof. In his resignation letter, he said this. So in the letter to Mr. Johnson, Lord Frost said that while, quote, Brexit is now secure, he had concerns about the current direction of travel. He said he handed in his resignation a week ago, partly in disagreement with the COVID curbs. In his letter, Frost, who had attended cabinet, says his resignation would take effect immediately and spoke of his desire to see a low tax economy. I hope we will move as fast as possible to where we need to be, a lightly regulated, low tax entrepreneurial economy at the cutting edge of modern science and economic change, he said. He added, the measures to reopen the economy back in July did not prove to be irreversible, saying that I hope we can get back on track soon and that not to be tempted by the kind of coercive measures we've seen elsewhere. Again, most of the public are in favor of Plan B, and yet again, we've got this section of the Conservative Party that is completely out of lockstep. Now, who's going to replace Lord Frost? I generally don't know, but it'll be interesting to see who gets picked, to say the least. But like I say, this came out of left field. I did not expect Frost to come out and resign. Maybe this is part of a wider plan to put pressure on to Boris Johnson to lean more towards the libertarian right economically, to push towards this fantasy idea they've got of creating Singapore on the Thames that we've often talked about. I hope not, but if they did, and they did really want to push in that direction, they would be in for an absolutely catastrophic loss because the public does not want that. So, as always, Thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.